Hi everyone, I'm David Fisher, and this is Presidential Chronicles, the series of books and videos on American history as seen through the lives of the presidents of the United States. This episode is from the life of John Adams, and the focus is Diplomat. The year is 1783. The Treaty of Paris has been signed. Adams has helped negotiate the end of the Revolutionary War, independence for the United States, and now he's wondering, what's next? What he really wants to do is stay in Europe and be his country's first official representative as the minister to the court of St. James, the opportunity to represent the United States back to the former mother country as the first minister. But Congress isn't quite ready to name a minister. They do give Adams an assignment that will keep him in Europe, and that's to negotiate a commercial agreement with the British. So at least he's got that. He's going to be in Europe for a while, and now that there's no more war going on, no more British warships patrolling the Atlantic, he sends for part of his family. Abigail's finally going to come over and join him. Also, their oldest child, Nabby, his oldest daughter, she's going to come over. John Quincy Adams is already with him in Europe. A full family affair. It actually launches probably the happiest years of John Adams' life. He has few responsibilities. He is enjoying his time with his family when they finally arrive, and a new member of his family arrives as well. Well, not an official member, but an unofficial member of the family, and that's Thomas Jefferson. Jefferson, Adams had known a little bit from the Second Continental Congress, certainly when they got together to help put forward independence and Jefferson's declaration, where they collaborated on that committee, but they really got to know each other in France. Now, Jefferson had just arrived. He eventually becomes the successor to Benjamin Franklin as the minister to France. Mainly, though, again, not a lot of diplomatic duties, but they have a great time together. They bond as a family. Jefferson, not just with Adams, but also with Abigail and Nabby and John Quincy. They enjoy each other's company. In a way, they're a very odd couple when you look at Adams and Jefferson. One's short, one's tall. They have different personalities completely. They're also different politically oriented, but they share this quest for knowledge, the source of liberty, and the fight for the United States and their country. This is their common bond, but they enjoy going to the theater, going to bookstores. They're both bibliophiles, and they love this bond that they're creating and this time they're spending together in France. In fact, Adams writes to Henry Knox, the former general from George Washington's staff in the Revolution, and says, "You can scarcely have heard a characterization too high of my friend and colleague, Mr. Jefferson, either in point of power or virtues." Adams and Jefferson have a very complicated story that goes forward where they become estranged for a long period of time. But the roots and foundation of their genuine respect and love for each other as people, that starts during these days in France. It is really founded in these days in France. Well, finally, in April of 1785, Adams is named the minister to Great Britain. So the family says their goodbyes to Jefferson, who's staying in Paris, and Adams and his family go off to Great Britain in time for the King's birthday. And the first time that Adams is presented to King George, and think of this, this is the former mothership of England and the colonial representative, the rebel John Adams, coming forward. And in one case of diplomacy, Adams actually says all the right things. He hits it off with King George with the following statement: "I think myself more fortunate than all my fellow citizens in having the distinguished honor to be the first to stand in your Majesty's royal presence in a diplomatic character. And I shall esteem myself the happiest of men if I can be instrumental in recommending my country more and more to your Majesty's royal benevolence and of restoring an entire esteem, confidence, and affection. I beg your Majesty's permission to add that although I have sometime before been entrusted by my country, it was never in my whole life in a manner so agreeable to myself." And King George really appreciates these sentiments. He says some kind words in return, and they actually have a cordial relationship for the tenure of Adams' responsibilities as the minister to the court of St. James. Now, he doesn't actually get a lot done in his 2 years in service. There's a number of things worthy of negotiations that are sort of hanging over from the Treaty of Paris, but the British are not terribly inclined to negotiate, so there's very little that Adams actually accomplishes other than making this connection with the king off on a good footing. The following year, March of 1786, Jefferson comes over for a visit, and his reception by the king is very different. Adams brings Jefferson along to introduce him to the king, and the king insults him by turning his back. Now, it was one thing for Adams the rebel to have a relationship with the king, different for that guy who wrote that Declaration of Independence that basically was a screed criticizing personally King George himself. That was a different story, and the king had no interest in spending time with Jefferson. Although Jefferson and Adams, they spend another couple of months together with the family. They have a phenomenal time in Britain. In fact, Adams also celebrates the marriage of Nabby in June of 1786. She had met a former Revolutionary War soldier, Colonel William Smith, in England. They decide to get married. Adams is happy about this for now, not so happy later, but this is all a happy time for the Adams family. Adams also picks up his pen. The United States is struggling under the Articles of Confederation in these post-war years, trying to come together as a unified country, but still in this government where it's a unicameral legislature that's trying to oversee the whole thing. It's weak by nature. And so Adams, who had written previously about constitutions, decides to write a document called A Defense of the Constitutions of Government of the United States of America. He once again advocates for that three-branch system with a bicameral legislature, checks against tyranny. He's particularly worried about the aristocrats, who he wants to park in the upper house of the legislature, in the Senate, where they can do whatever they're going to do, but they will be checked by a powerful executive and the more popular part of the legislature in a House of Representatives. This is the only way to keep the aristocrats in check. In fact, Adams writes in his defense document, he's not very fond of democracy, which he finds typically is a mob-like rule and gets out of control. And he is in favor of a strong executive. And this is where some of the first traits of monarchism, or at least the challenges of Adams as a potential monarchist, comes out of his writings in the defense, where he absolutely maintains that a strong executive as a check on the aristocrats in the legislature and the judiciary as well is necessary for the functioning of a republic. Well, in the meantime, Adams is far away when his country comes together and finally agrees that this Articles of Confederation isn't working. We're going to have our own constitutional convention for a new national constitution. And when it finally comes out, Adams is pretty pleased. He says, but as all the great principles necessary to order, liberty, and safety are respected in it, and provision is made for corrections and amendments as they be found necessary, I confess I hope to hear of its adoption by all the states. So Adams is a supporter. Adams takes another trip to the Netherlands where he's been going back and forth to raise funds for his country. Jefferson joins him on this trip, and this is the last trip that they will make together abroad because Adams' time in Europe is coming to a close. It's 1788. The hardest part about leaving Europe is saying goodbye to Jefferson, his closest friend, but it's with a lot of pride that Adams finally is about to return home. He's certainly proud of his work with the Dutch, getting recognition, money, the Treaty of Paris to end the war, being the representative that is welcomed by King George. Now, he knows he ruffled a bunch of feathers while he was over there. He ran afoul with Benjamin Franklin. He ran afoul with the French foreign minister, Comte de Vergennes. He did it his way, and he's proud, though, of the accomplishments on behalf of his country. So 1788, he's heading home after spending most of the past decade in Europe, not really sure what's next. And that is the story for another day. For now, that is John Adams and Diplomat from the life of John Adams. For more Presidential Chronicles, check out my books on Amazon.com, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Until next time, I'm David Fisher, and this is Presidential Chronicles.